Good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock and my name is Elise Hatton. I'm the Smart Hub Business Manager, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to today's HubLive. Now, as you know, we are responding to what's happening in the world right now. Things are changing rapidly. We have to make decisions about a lot of things in business and in our lives every single day. But ultimately, we're all working towards maintaining our own well-being and our own safety and our own health. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm extremely excited to introduce you to our guest, Mr. Anthony Hart. Hello, Mr. Anthony Hart from LifeBack Tracker. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Yourself?
I'm really well, thank you, Anthony. Let me ask you, where are you?
I'm in Iris Street at Melrose Park in South Australia, Adelaide. So it's about 12 kilometres south of the city.
Well, we are definitely practicing proper social distancing, I think. You being in Adelaide and we're being in Rocky. Actually, the last time we saw you here in Rockhampton was in October last year when you were launching your app, LifeBack Tracker. So your whole business is around helping people find well-being in challenging times, right?
It is, and look, it's my why is to produce tools that people can use the second they're confronted by significant life challenges. And so, you know, what an ideal, it's the wrong word to use, but this is the perfect moment where what I do is relevant.
Absolutely. Confronted by life's challenges. I love that phrase. That's certainly where we're all at. Tell us, what is your take on the current environment?
Look, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen this build up, and I think there's been a delay in decision making with some of the lockdowns that have occurred. But as these lockdowns occur, people are getting more and more anxious and edgy, and you know, everybody is, and that's a natural feeling. And challenging those first signs of being stressed. This isn't going away, and this is going to be with us for, you know, it could be, you know, looking like a 6-month period where we have to learn how to control the controllables that we can change in our life to make ourselves feel better. And that's the stuff, I suppose, that our whole ethos is around: alcohol, exercise, sleeping, and the talking piece. And it's terrible to see what's going on in the world. We do have to work out how we can better confront stuff and we have to make tough decisions, number one, but we also have to just be responsible for our own health. And there are simple things we can do to feel heaps better. And I think things will certainly evolve across the next few weeks.
So before you share with us those things that we can do to make ourselves feel heaps better, some of our people joining us today might not be familiar with your story. Would you please just give us a bit of a short version of your story and how you found your why, which is to help people overcome stressful and challenging situations, or creating tools that help people overcome challenging and stressful situations? Tell us, how did you fall, or how did you come into this?
My mentor says to me it takes me an hour and a half to watch 60 minutes when I tell this story. So I'm going to have a crack at giving you the shortened version. After a very successful 3 or 4 years living in London in 2000 to 2003, that old saying, the grass is greener on the other side. I missed being back home in the sun. I left my fantastic job in London, moved back to South Australia. It was great for the first few weeks, but I very quickly worked out that settling back into my old environment was hard. Over a very short period, I started to slowly go down. I started to avoid socializing. I started to drink too much. I started to just avoid situations. I became very insular, and it finally got to about 6 months of me being back home that I found myself in a position where I couldn't sleep. And it was then that I went to my doctor. I got given a prescription for an antidepressant. the trigger for me was finding that worthwhile job or that why. And I'd left such a great career in London that I just couldn't find it back home. And so after seeing the doctor in October 2003, so 6 months after I'd arrived back in Adelaide, I finally got a job that required me to go to Sydney, and it was a really good job with one of the major banks to learn currency. And so I went to Sydney. I had to go and train in Sydney, North Sydney. And it was after 9 days of being over there in the training course that, my ability to sleep had completely gone. I got to a stage where probably for 6 or 7 nights, I had between 1 and 2 hours sleep. Mm-hmm. Now your body can't survive that. And so on the Friday, November the 7th, 2003, I got asked to leave the course that I was doing in North Sydney by the supervisor. They thought I was either intoxicated or completely fatigued. So they said, go home and rest up. We've got a really good night tonight in North Sydney. So I went home, got the ferry back to the hotel, and it was after 2 hours of lying in my bed that I finally picked up the phone to ring my doctor back home. So no one had known any of this stuff was going on. And I think more so with men, but us blokes we struggle to share this stuff. And I was one of those. I finally picked up the phone, rang my GP. The GP unfortunately was busy. I then put my board shorts on to go for a swim. And so if you're stressed or anxious, which I was suffering from acute anxiety, the best thing to do is to go and do a run, do a swim, or go for a bike ride. So I went up to the top of that hotel on level 21 to go for a swim. And so that's what I planned to do. From the witness statement that was documented on that night, I walked straight past the swimming pool, climbed over the glass rail, and I jumped. Now, 11 stories down, 1 in a million chance, there was an upgraded hotel balcony with a canvas awning pulled out. And at 190 k's an hour, I hit that awning and survived.
Wow.
What I quickly realised, and fast tracking this part of the story, was I 3 or 4 days later woke up out of a coma, and it was 3 months later that I got transferred back to Adelaide to a rehabilitation clinic. And it was there that my why started to come out. And the product I developed was called LifeBack Tracker, and it's 4 steps to better mind health. And what started to happen was, like, if I knew you before the accident, you would be absolutely blown away as to what happened to me. As soon as I returned home, you'd come into the clinic. Now, friend after friend would come and see me, but it was all the males who virtually every 4th male would come and see me, and they would start to get a bit teary, emotional, and they would say to me that they're going through similar things that you went through, not as bad. And this is where I started to talk about there are 4 things that I have to do to get myself better. Number 1, exercise. And I had to do that every day. That was part of my routine. Because of the hit to the head, alcohol was just outlawed. With an acquired brain injury, you just can't drink. So that was good. I was forced to stop alcohol. Number 3, really worked on the sleep with the sleep doctors, and getting decent, consistent sleep on an ongoing basis is just an ingredient for health. And talking and connecting. Now, this is the thing. I did none of these 4 things prior to my accident, but number 1 under talking is to friend connect. And look in your network and choose 1 person that you can completely trust, implicitly trust they won't share what you're telling them, and tell them exactly how anxious and scared you're feeling. Now, this is the perfect time where, every second person, 50% of people are going a bit, where the world's in chaos. And I really really suggest for people to go and look in their network and find in they're generally a really good old friend or someone that they used to be friends with in their early school years that's outside of their network to pick up the phone. Now, social distancing doesn't allow you to take them out for a coffee at the moment, but just ring them on the phone and be brutally honest with how you're thinking, feeling, and acting. And that person will be probably the only person that you'll reach out to, but they've got to quarantine what you've shared, and they'll be your third person who knows what's going on. And the second part under talking is to go straight to a medical professional, which first point of call is your GP, and your partner's a GP. Going to the GP and being honest, open, and not withholding anything is my absolute advice, because those GPs can only go by what you tell them, and they will guide you to a counsellor if they think it's a counselling thing. If they think it's a chemical imbalance, they'll send you to a psychiatrist. So that's how I kind of put it together.
Wow. Okay. So you had this incredible experience, which then led you to a place of recovery. And in that place of recovery, people opened up to you and said, look, we're struggling with this as well. And then you developed LifeBack Tracker and discovered your why, essentially.
I did. It took 15 years. So this was 2000.
Yeah, it's easy to condense all of that in 3 or 4 sentences. But that's been a life journey for you, right?
It has, and it was 2015 that it came out. I used to be terrified of public speaking, and so one of my farmer friends said to me, "I've had 3 farmers lose their life to suicide this year. The town's only got 600 people. Will you come up and do a talk?" And I'm like, "No way. No way am I talking in front of a group. I get red in the face. That's not something I'm going to do." Well, he coached me into getting up there and having a crack at doing it. And that was July 7, 2015. And we thought 30 farmers would turn up, because farmers don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah, correct.
135 farmers arrived.
Wow.
And I, very nervously for the first 5 seconds, looking out at the crowd was just sheer hell. And then the story went for 2 hours.
That's incredible. Now, let's fast forward to today. We're obviously in a very, I want to use the word strange time, a time that we haven't seen or experienced before. And things are shifting and changing all the time. And I think another challenge is not knowing how long this will last for. What are you seeing? What's your perspective on where we're at right now?
My view is that everyone has to look at what they're doing professionally as far as how they feed the family with their jobs. And in everybody's job, they have to work out how they need to, they call it pivot, how they need to change direction. Now, if it's ever going to affect an industry, the most vulnerable industry, I started my journey 2 years ago in the professional speaking industry. Now, 100% of the professional speaking industry has been wiped out. Now, conferences, places of gathering, everything has been banned. So our business, I talk about everyone needs to change. Now, in our business, we completely have to change. Now, it's a social good business, but it needs to have products that are desirable to give benefit. Yeah. And so our last 9 days has been to come up with 4 different versions of how we deliver our LifeBack Tracker 4 Steps to Better Mind Health workshop. So there's a live streaming, there's a DIY online, which is like a follow the bouncy balls, and there's a pre-recorded. And so we've developed 2 of those 4, and we've had to do that pretty quickly because the market the market's changed. So whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, everything's changed. It has. And, I think at the start, everyone's kind of, it's like you're in the spotlight. What do? You panic. I think there'll be my view is to, it's easy to say to calm down, but to calm down, get through the next 3 or 4 weeks until we know what the new normality is, and then try and delay making the big decisions, because this is going to be around, it looks like it could be between 4 and 6 months, the way it will change our life. And so we have to accept it, because at the start we're all in denial, aren't we?
Correct.
So we have to accept it, change what we do, but you know how quick this will go so quick.
Yeah, it will.
It will. And I went through my challenge in 2003. Now, it took 5 years for me to get better. And do you know how quick 5 years goes? I look back now and I think 2020, like 5 years went like that. So 6 months is a very, very short period.
That's correct. That is absolutely true. So obviously people will be facing changes, or we are all facing changes every day in our professional lives, our careers, our businesses, but we're also facing changes in our personal lives in terms of having to maybe self-isolate, having to, not see family and friends. And it's impossible for that not to have an emotional and psychological effect on a human being, which we all are human beings. And I know that your whole thing is about mind health, ensuring that you are healthy so that you can experience life in a good way. And I think we'll be challenged to have good mind health and physical health, which is kind of part of that, over the next while. So take us through those 4 steps again and talk to us more broadly about what it is that you and I and someone watching the HubLive can do to ensure that we get through this in a healthy state.
So I'll start on the talking and connecting piece, because that now, if people get very sick, and this isn't my focus, but those who lose their life to suicide, which is right at the other end, okay, 60% had never talked to anyone about what caused them to die, right? How ridiculous is that, right? So number one, early on now, because everyone's stressed, if you're really, really, really having grave thoughts, and your people have lost their jobs, right? Look in your network and just think of, now mine is my buddy Sync person's Rob Francis. He lives in Millicent, 5 hours away, and we were friends since we were 2. Now he's completely not in my circle, right? He eats sausage rolls, iced coffee. He wears tracksuit pants, and he's got red hair, right? So we are poles apart, but we are very, very, very close friends. And I can ring him up and quarantine what I'm going to tell him. So find your person.
Just to say, here you go.
Yeah, so find your person who you can quarantine those thoughts to, right? Who isn't in your daily or weekly network. So it's not your best mates you see every day. It's not your parents, even though they care about you. It's someone from a past network, but a very close friend, right? Ring them up and just tell them your worst fears, and that problem shared's a problem halved. Number 2, if over an extended period of 2 or 3 weeks that negative thought keeps going, absolutely go straight to your GP and be honest with them, because the earlier you get onto it, the quicker you can recover. And that was my problem. I delayed going to the doctor for 6 months. So number 1 is talking. Now we can all do that. We can still go to the GP, and I think that will be a vital service 24/7. Number 2 is exercise. Now,
yes, Exercise.
Now, as you know, I go in the swimming pool every day. Now, they've all been shut. So as of last night, the swimming pools got closed down. So I go to swimming in indoor swimming centres. Now, they're shut. I'm actually starting tomorrow morning to go and swim in the ocean down at Brighton and Somerton. Now, if you've seen South Australia, we have lots of great white sharks along that coast. Now, I'll go out probably 10 metres and just do it's not a very professional looking swim, but I'll go and do my swimming. So for people who can choose, you've got to get yourself exercising every day. And I love to try and inspire people to do at least half hour. You won't do it every day, but at least choose one that you can do. Now, we're very limited now with gyms, swimming pools, team sports, but we can still go down to the park in groups of 1 or 2 with social distance and run around an oval and go and do 25 laps of the oval. But when you do it quick enough so you get your breathing gets going and you tire yourself out. So exercise is really crucial. That gets the endorphins going, and it will actually make you feel. It will make you feel happier. It will. And number 3, and rest, reduce or remove your alcohol. Alcohol is the worst thing when you're confronted by a significant life challenge. It just is, and it's not rocket science to learn that. It's great when you're drinking, but you wake up the next day and you're snappy, or you just don't think as good. So really, honestly, rest it. That's tough, isn't it, socially? And I think the 4th thing is sleep. And so getting good, consistent sleep on an ongoing basis is so important. And keeping off your social devices late at night, not sitting on your computer till 9, 10, 11 o'clock, kind of switching off early, playing with the kids or doing whatever you do socially, socially being in your house because we're all confined to our house. Yeah. But have your dinner early, 2 hours before you go to bed. Don't do anything. Just maybe read a book or, they're 4 things that are they will change how you're feeling. Now the app very simply just records those 4 things, and it shows you on a graph where your thoughts and feelings go up and down. So there's a 4-scale question. You ask 8 questions and you say you're either happy or you're sad, and you score yourself with 8 questions, and you can compare that to how much you're drinking, how much you're exercising, and how many hours sleep you're getting. So it's not, you don't have to be have an Einstein to work out that if you don't drink, you exercise, and you get some decent sleep, that you better confront stuff. And
if you have someone to talk to, that's like the cherry on top.
Talking is huge, and so don't be afraid to talk early and confide in someone, because, well, and look now, at least 50% of people will probably be going through the same type of trigger. There'll be something in 50% of people's lives that's making them not feel good. So and this is a very short period. 6 months in someone's life goes really quickly. So things will get back to better life.
That's awesome. Anthony, you share such practical and great advice to ensure that we are healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically at the end of the day. Really just following those 4 steps, finding someone to talk to, both a friend who can keep your secrets, essentially, but also your doctor. That's really important. Getting good exercise, refraining from drinking if you can, or resting the alcohol, to use your words. I love that phrase. And then finally, getting good proper sleep. And I said exercise and sleep, right?
Yes.
If we follow those 4 steps, even in this challenging time, even in a time where you might think that you have bigger problems than that, how can these 4 easy steps, help you? You've lost your job or your business is struggling, or whatever the situation might be, those 4 things will help you act in a more clear and more creative and resourceful way, and it will help you make a better plan moving forward. Where if you don't do those things, if you start not sleeping or not talking to people, or you're feeling really unwell mentally or emotionally or physically, then obviously it creates much larger problems than the ones that we might be facing right now.
You wrap that up perfectly, and I think times will get better, things will get better, and it's the things that you can kind of control yourself that, work on those things, because a lot of the other stuff, as we're seeing in the media now, we can't control.
Yeah. And the last, sorry, you go.
I was just going to, and the biggest rule around our why is to make this tool available to anyone, anywhere, anytime, no cost. So the app is completely free to download from both the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. It doesn't require even a username, password, which commercially it's probably the most crazy product in the world to build, but it's got to be, because people don't want to be, not that you should feel bad about tracking those things, but it's a mind health tool, and I just urge people to have a crack at using it and see for themselves how much better they feel.
Love it, love it. And what we will do is we'll be posting the links to both the App Store and the Android Store in our comments, so that you can download the LifeBack Tracker. And as Anthony said, it enables you to track your mood or how you're feeling and functioning, and also track those 4 things, and then you can correlate your behavior towards how you are feeling. And it's really is quite fascinating to know. I know when you were here last year, I tracked myself for a little bit, and it's interesting to see the ebbs and flows, and how what you do has a great effect. So did you exercise today? Yes or no? And how has that influenced how I was feeling on that day? So I highly recommend you use the app. Highly, highly recommend it. Mr. Anthony Hart, the other thing, just in wrapping this up, you said, which I love, which I just like to repeat, is your own business was wiped out by this, but you're not going home and saying, the game over. What you said is, what do I need to change? I have a strong why. I need to help people. How can I make this happen? And gave yourself a few days to come up, and you and your team to come up with ideas to essentially serve your customers and your tribe in a different way. And I would highly recommend that people do the same. I think that is fantastic. Creativity is a wonderful thing. Resourcefulness is a wonderful thing. And there is equal opportunity in the current situation as there is, challenge. So good on you.
Well, there is. I think one of the clear points I think with that is that for a week and a half, we didn't make any decisions. And it's over the next, we started this week, going forward for the next 3 weeks, we're changing the way we do things. We're not just knee-jerk. I don't think you can just quickly panic and change your direction. You need to think about the benefit of what you're delivering and what the best way is to produce that, because people will still need all the services that we all require. I saw last night that Scott Morrison put a stop on open inspections for houses. And I've already seen an email come out today from some local South Australian real estate companies with ways around it. They're doing walkthroughs now and live chats. So things change pretty quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your time and for your insight, for sharing your story, for sharing the 4 steps, and also for making this app available to us free of charge. That's so wonderful. Just before we say goodbye, do you have any last words of wisdom or any last message that you'd like to share with us?
The 4 steps, people can't do all those 4 things, right? You've got so much going on. Really focus on one of those things. So there'll be 1 or 2 of them that you're probably doing now. Focus on changing one of those things significantly. And that's really the first and the best place to start.
Okay, one step at a time. Pick one thing.
Absolutely. And I've just learned by live streaming to turn your mobile phone off.
That's a good lesson to learn, sir. That's a really good lesson to learn. Mr. Anthony Hart, LifeBack Tracker, thank you so much. It's been wonderful seeing you again. And we look forward to chatting and touching base with you again sometime in the future.
Fantastic. It's great to be on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.